Now let's talk a little bit about body language in relation to the different cultures. Now in India, if I do this, which is called the ring gesture, people immediately feel I'm saying well done or good job. But in some parts of the world, this particular gesture is a zero gesture, in the sense you know nothing. You're a zero. You don't know anything. So it's important for us to know who we're communicating with, so that when we use our gestures, person does not take it in a negative way. Similarly, a victory sign, the way we are going to turn our palm. If we turn it this way, it means you're giving a bad word, or you're telling the person to go and get lost. And this again is a victory sign. So just the way we are going to face our hands definitely tells another story. In India, another thing that is very common is that we nod our head. Sometimes we say this when we're trying to say no, and sometimes we say this when we're trying to say yes. So remember, when there's a confusion about what you're saying, yes, no, and you're shaking your head in different ways, people prefer if you also say the word out when you're communicating. So you're saying yes, but you're shaking your head like this. It's also better to say yes, even though you're nodding your head, right? So nodding our head and using our head movements is very, very common in India. People say that this is because Indians tend to dance. We have a lot of forms of dancing, and that comes out in our communication when we're talking to people. So it's a good thing that we shake our heads, but when we are trying to say important bits of information, it's also better to say the word that you're nodding your head for. Eye signals and the gestures and the eye signals that we generally give to people when we communicate. So it is said that eyes are the windows of a soul, and it shows exactly the feelings of a person. And that is absolutely true. Eye contact is a very, very important part of body language, and it tells a person immediately whether the person is genuinely interested in what the other person is saying. It also shows confidence and whether you're honest or trustworthy. Apart from that, the other gesture of your face is a smile. A smiling facial expression is when one is very relaxed, one is very confident. People who smile make the person who is communicating feel very comfortable and relaxed. A tense smile, sometimes when your forehead creases, can tell the person that you're a little upset, you're a little worried, and you're thinking of something else. And an over-enthusiastic smile, when you're trying to show a person that you're over happy, is when all your dental display is on display. All your teeth are on display. A little bit more now, we're moving on into arms and the gestures that we make with our arms. Now this crossed body language, crossed arms like this, can show a person that we're feeling very, very protective, very defensive. We don't want other people to know what we're feeling or what we're thinking. And sometimes even when we keep our body language like this is also like a half gate, when we are not wanting people to think about what we are feeling. This clenched hands together and wringing of the hands and playing with all the knuckles can mean that you're very extremely nervous. And hands on the hip, when you're standing like that, it can mean that I want to control the situation or I want to argue with you. So hands on the hip again, not a very positive body language. Hands behind the back is a bit of an authoritative mannerism. I'm in a slightly higher up position, so I want to stand with my hands on my back. Remember, in your school days, maybe a principal stood with their hands behind the back. When you slap your forehead, what does it mean? It means that perhaps you have forgotten something. You have forgotten to tell a person something, and you slap the person or slap your forehead on when you've forgotten something. Sometimes when you're very, very restless and when you're frustrated and you have a lot of tension, you run your hands through your hair. Think about sometimes when a sports person is losing a match. He tends to put all his fingers through his hair. It shows a lot of frustration and tension. Sometimes you can also sit with your face in your hand, cupping your face in your hand, and that shows that you're very, very fed up. Generally, people who touch their mouth a lot when they speak could mean that they're very, very nervous, and it could also mean that you're not being fully truthful. So when you speak, try not to keep touching your face. Also, try not to keep touching your nose, because that is also another indication that the person is not telling the absolute truth. Also, remember, most of the body language tips that we give is depending upon the situation. If it is very hot and you tend to do this with your forehead, it's not that you forgot something, it's just that it's very hot. Or for example, if something is irritating your mouth, it's not that you are lying, but sometimes you just scratch your mouth because something could be biting you or itching you. So it's also according to the environment that you're in. The next one is gestures relating to the legs. Now, legs that are crossed together, again, show, just like your hands when you cross them, when you cross your leg, shows that you're very, very defensive. And sometimes when you keep shifting your legs back and forth, it could mean that you're a bit impatient and you're a bit in a hurry. When you stretch out your legs in front of you, you relax and you stretch them out, looks like you're very, very relaxed. So a couple of things that you can keep in mind when you're talking about your leg movements. The other one is heads and shoulders. That means how you're going to keep your head on your shoulders. If you have a raised head, you are interested, you have control over a situation. When you're looking down and your shoulders are all down, your face is down, it shows defeat, insecurity, fear. And when you're tilting your head to one side, it shows curiosity or a little bit of interest.